In student days, one of the brethren said, this is the day when one can read the very homily pronounced by St. Caesar of Arles in the place where it was pronounced. And so I took my Latin breviary and went over to the Lateran hill, which was opposite the little Aventine where we were, and one could actually see it from the window of the study cell, and read there the homily on the dedication of the parish church of the Bishop of Rome, which is St. John Lateran. It's still there, together with the baptistry next to it, built by Constantine, as were other important churches, including actually one which is no longer standing in Rome, because the basilica which he built over the burial place of St. Peter was superseded by the present colossal structure of the Renaissance commissioned by Julius II. But it was moving to be there in the body of the ancient Constantinian Basilica of the Lateran on one of those 7 hills of Rome, and feeling the prayer of the centuries still dense in the air, and hearing the words of this great saint reminding us that we are ourselves the first temple, and that the way to honour the presence of the Lord is to make sure that our own temple is a place of welcome for him. My beloved brothers, he says, if we want to celebrate the birthday of this church with true joy, we must not destroy the living temple of God within us by our sins. I shall put it in a way everybody can understand. Let your souls be as spotless and shining as you want this church to be when you come to it. He has been talking about the way that they've made the building beauteous and welcoming. There are these lights. Everything is clean, spotless, festive. And so we too must be clean, spotless and festive. On this feast, the gospel given is, take these things out of here. It's what the Lord is saying at the purifying of the temple. And he might be saying the same things to us with regard to the clutter that our temple bears. And the risk is far greater and more serious in our time with regard to that. Because whereas those who prayed before us in these ancient churches, relatively speaking, were bound to be living a simple life in their interior, not always, but relatively, whereas we are contaminated. We are carrying too many things that we were not meant to carry. And the Lord can't find rest in our souls because we don't know how to rest ourselves within them. We don't have to have all these messages. And we need to be very careful because there are new invasions now, and very new in time, which were never even dreamt of before. People are passing things to each other on little gadgets, and all their reality is now virtual. Bleep, and on they go. There's no one continuum in their line of thought. It's bleep, and they're taken away into something immediate. We can't read, we can't pray. It's all bleep, and we don't have to have it. It would be better to be bleepless. Take these things out of here, the Lord might be saying to our soul. Look at me. Look into my eyes. Life is not made of bleep. These churches show the love of the people of God for their God. Think of the ancient medieval cathedrals in France. These high, it's in French, it's called flèches. That means an arrow, but it's a church steeple, and it seems to be piercing like a rocket the clouds, going as high as it can, and not a grain of sweat was spared with regard to the effort going into each bit of it. They put things which people wouldn't even see there. And I remember noticing things at our own abbey which were perched on all corners, and everything was different, just gratuitous praise. And also, all the work at the sanctuary end was precious stone. It was actually alabaster, onyx, that kind of stone. One could actually see through it nearly. If one shone a torch through it, the light would come through. And for centuries, the windows also were alabaster. The magic light would come in, but extremely powerful work. And on this day, I think I must have still been a deacon at the time, I was asked to keep watch at the church one morning. At the back of it, would have to have a presence of some kind. And there, while calmly in the presence of the Lord, keeping an eye on things, I heard someone come in and made this remark as she entered: "Estupendo." It's stupendous. And it was the effect that the church had, even more so as it was often filled with incense as they came in. There might be actually our own Gregorian chant recorded going on. And the atmosphere, the whole thrust of the building was upward. It all went towards the high altar and the miraculous crucifix, because the crucifix behind it was miraculous, it had a story of its own. When it was taken away years ago to be put in a museum, there were earthquakes in the area between the church and where it was until they had to bring it back, and then the earthquake stopped. The Lord wanted that crucifix there, and it's still there, although the brethren have gone from there, unfortunately. But we would celebrate before that crucifix, facing the rising sun, and with incense on the high altar, unchanged. And there one was aware of the passing from one generation to another of beauty and work, nothing being spared, only the best for God. And they had managed somehow to tame the light coming through these windows with the rising sun, and coming, as it were, through the pillars, the whole magic of light. Jerusalem the blessed. Jerusalem means vision of peace, Yerushalayim, and it is something which should be felt in a place of worship. No noise. Take these things out of here. It applies to the church on all levels. The Lord does not want human voices taking away from His in His own place, which must be a place of encounter, where the angels also are at home, and they do not like to hear our voices. We need to be aware that we have not less but more than what Moses had when he, out of the blue, heard this strange voice: "Put off thy shoes from thy feet, for the ground on which thou standest is holy ground." And so I wrote these words as I heard this lady come in and say, "It is stupendous," as I looked towards the high altar and saw the thrust Godward and upward, where man can actually be taken up even by a building. There is a passage in the diary of St. Faustina where she went into one church of this nature somewhere in Poland, and she heard a voice, because the church was actually of the same nature, had an effect. The Lord wanted the church to be like this. How many bulldozers have gone through our beautiful churches, and how little respect has been given to the centuries of sweat that went before us. We know better, don't we? Functional buildings. A box is enough for the King of Kings. to build upon the earth a vault of heaven that will with glory beam, to hold a ray of God in stone well hewn and deftly given a light to tame, the ancient light to flay in pore and prismic chiselling, there to store the travelling wave that left the Elysian home of soft taboric ether, where before the light of light the seraph eye did roam, to come again, again, at clap of yester sound, to crystal wall, Jerusalem the blessed, till tired stars wane, and there upon the deep of night to call. This is to trap a glister in its flight, to tune into a range of strange dark light.